Good morning, this is Dr. Turner for Integrated Math 1. Today we're covering 6.3, which is looking at central tendency and spread. Central tendency, as the name might suggest, is what the center of a set of data tends to be, but more commonly we refer to that as an average. So this is something that is covered typically in middle school, should be reviewed, but it is a topic that for sure will come up on the CAS test, so hopefully if it's a review assignment for you and it's easy, great. If you need a little bit extra practice, that's great as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at central tendency and spread. For central tendency specifically, there are three types that we focus on in middle school and high school. There are other examples that you can look at, but our main three are mean, median, and mode. As always with my classes, I prefer that you are able to describe these in your own words rather than Googling it or looking up your own looking up like a textbook definition, because I don't think that helps you. Median is the number that is in the middle when it's in order. So that's important to note. It has to be in order. Mode is the number that is most common. And then your mean average is what you would typically think of when you're talking about averages. This is where you add all the numbers up and then divide by how many there are. So if there's 5 numbers in your data set, then you'll divide it by 5. Okay? So that's mean, median, mode. Those are your most common examples of central tendency, your averages. That's one way of looking at a set of data. So you're trying to figure out sort of what's in the middle or what's common, what's average, what's the center, what does it tend to be. So those are three ways that you can look at central tendency for a set of data. And you'll be asked to do that on the assignment. So I'm just, again, pulling something here. 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, and for argument's sake, let's say 15. Okay? Especially if I'm pulling numbers at random, it's very common that I could have a number that is not an integer, it's not a whole number for any of these three averages. So that's common. Just because you get a decimal, don't freak out. Don't think that you've made a mistake. Okay? But looking here, median and mode are the easiest because they don't really require any math. Median's the number in the middle. So here I have an odd set of data. So if I'm going from left to right, 1, 2, 3, and from the right, 1, 2, 3. So 11 is the number in the middle. So if I asked you to identify each of these three central tendencies, the median would be 11. Similarly, mode doesn't really require me to do any math. I'm just looking for what number occurs most frequently. Every number occurs once except 15, so the mode then would be 15. Now, if I ask you to find the mean average, this is the one that actually requires a little bit of arithmetic. So you're adding all of these up. So for the mean average, you'd be doing 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 11 plus 13 plus 15 plus 15. You're going to add those all up, and then you're going to divide by how many numbers there are. In this case, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. So 5, 12, 21, 32, 45, 60, 75 divided by 7. And depending on the instructions, it might ask you to leave it as a decimal. It might ask you to leave it as a fraction, depending on the instructions. Just for argument's sake, let's pull up Desmos. And if the instructions don't specify to a certain decimal place, you should always write at least 2. 3 would be better. But let's say I do round to 3 decimal places. This would be about 10.714. So that's my mean average. Okay. Again, this should be a review, so I think most of you are going to be okay with doing mean, median, and mode. You've done it before in middle school. Remember that there are a couple scenarios where this gets not wonky, but a little bit different. So say I have 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, 8, 8. Okay? So first thing, let's say I want to do the mode. Mode is the easy one. What number is most common? There's 4 8s. That's more than any other number, so the mode is 8. Again, no arithmetic involved for mode. Now, when I go to do the median, that's also fairly simple, but the median is supposed to be the number in the middle. Well, in this specific data set, I have an even number of data points. I have 8 total values. So both 4 and 8 are in the middle. Whenever you have an even set of data points and you're asked to find the median, what you have to do is you have to add the 2 that are in the middle, in this case 4 and 8, and take the mean average. So add them up, divide by 2, which would give you 6. Now, some people can do the mental math of looking at 4 and 8 and determining what number is in between 4 and 8, which is 6. Otherwise, as I just indicated, you can add them up, divide by 2. That is your correct median. Mode will still be the same. So for mode, I'm adding them up and dividing by how many there are. So 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, 8, 8. That's 4, 8, 12, plus 32. That gives me 44 divided by 8, which would give me a mean, rather. That would give me a mean of 4.5. Oh, there we go. Give me a mean of 4.5. Those are all examples of central tendency, mean, median, and mode. For spread, we have 2 common ways to look at spread. And again, there are more than 2, but these are the most common that we use. For spread, as opposed to central tendency, which is kind of looking at what's the middle, that's one useful way to look at a set of data. Spread is looking at how far spread out the data is. Range is the most common, and range is simply taking the high and subtracting the low. So whatever the highest point is, or the lowest point is, you subtract those 2, that's your range. So, on examples 1 and 2 here, if I wanted to find the range, for number 1, for instance, I'm just doing 15 minus 5, which gives me 10. And for number 2, again, high minus low, 8 minus 2, gives me 6. It's an indicator of how far spread out data is. The other most common way to look at spread is what's known as interquartile range, or IQR. So it's interquartile range. The advantage to IQR versus range is that it eliminates the possibility of having an outlier throwing off our data set a lot. So for instance, let's say I took an example like number 1, and I went in and let's say I added 100 at the end. Okay, 100 is a lot bigger than the rest of my data. If I just simply took range, that would give me a range of 95, which as by itself would sort of indicate, wow, this data is really far spread out, but most of the data is concise. It's just that one point that's throwing off the range. So IQR eliminates those possibilities and kind of looks at, as the name might suggest again, the inner range of the middle set of data. We're going to be talking about that in 5.4 when we get into box plots, so I'll skip that for now. In this assignment for 5.3, these are the 4 things that you need to be able to do: mean, median, mode, and range. That's it for today, guys. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Otherwise, have a good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.